call a quality assurance and support system. As part of that, we want to set the quality standards for early childhood development, to say ECD programs that are most likely to see an improvement in child outcomes, these are the practices that we see there. This is the quality standards that we want for our ECD programs, so that we can be very clear on what is expected in terms of quality, but we are calling it a quality assurance and support system, because we don't want that to be a compliance system. It is a support system. It's how do we progressively support all our early learning programs to meet these quality standards. So we want to be clear on what we mean by quality, but we need to have an entire system around these ECD programs to help and support them get there. So this is part of the vision over the next 5 years. We're not there yet, but we are working towards that vision. But what we are saying is, what the evidence is telling us, that you find ECD programs that look very different to each other, still achieving very high learner outcomes. Some of them might be play groups, some of them might be mobile programs, some of them might be formal ECD centers, but we see they've got the same child outcomes, which means that the modality of delivery can look differently, but we want, because in the end, what we want is we want more children thriving by 5. That is our end goal, and we recognize we need to have, there can be different paths to reaching that end goal. So just on that, and I think then, just to the point on inclusivity, spot on. One of the actions in the blueprint is all about how do you create not just a tool, but an entire system around helping identify children early on in ECD programs that have developmental delays. How do we ensure we've got support for them? How do we ensure we bring in different departments when it's needed? So it's an entire action in the blueprint is just around how do we build an entire system around children and inclusivity, and recognizing it's more than just inclusivity. Recognizing that children in ECD programs come with different exposures to violence, different exposure to different levels of stress. All of that needs to be incorporated when we think of what is the support, psychosocial support, as the president said, which I definitely need. How do we bring all of that around the child? So we don't have the solution yet, but we've identified that we need a whole piece of work that needs to work around that. And I remember I forgot the question on what do we mean by the ecosystem? And you might see some posters up around the room. We're going to be deep diving into that. What does the ecosystem look like? But at a high level, what we are saying is that you've got ecosystems at different levels. You've got, at the national, there's different players that need to play their role. At the provincial level, you've got different players. In different government departments, you've got different role players. We've got local government as a very important player. We've got NGOs as players. At the local level, thinking in a town, you've got different players. There's different players at different levels, all that need to play their role collectively, horizontally and vertically, horizontally, to ensure that we set up the systems in place so that children can thrive. So we'll get into the detail of what the ecosystem looks like, but the concept behind it is for so long we've been working in silos. So for so long, each of us have been developing our own beautiful garden, and it's a beautiful garden. But it's not an ecosystem, it's not a rainforest. It's these walled gardens, each doing their own thing in their own silos. And we want to move away from each one building their own garden to saying, how can we be a thriving rainforest that gives life to our ECD programs? So that is perhaps a bit of an image to help us on where we're heading and what are we trying to achieve. So I hope that makes sense. With this, lunch is served, but I don't actually know where. Do you?
They just at the same place as yesterday. Yeah, okay. So we know where lunch has been served? Okay, awesome. All right, colleagues, we'll see you exactly at 2 o'clock sharp. Thank you so much. Enjoy your lunch. I'm not sure. Are you guys not in the room? Is it safe for us to do that? Colleagues, I'll check if they're locking the room, but it doesn't seem like they will be. So if you've got any valuables, please take them with you.
Picture is over the screen. Two, 1, 2. Ready for you, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon. I hope you had a great lunch. Thank you so much for coming back on time. We are going to start. It's exactly 2 o'clock on the dot. Colleagues, let us start with our commission. All right. Okay, I see a few people are not here, but we are going to start for the sake of time, hoping that they will be back as we are going along with the commission. Okay, so this part of the commission, we're going to have the presentations that we spoke about earlier. But before we start, I think as we are listening to the presentations, I'm going to invite you or ask you as stakeholders to please be asking yourself 3 questions. The first question is, where does my organization fit, within the, ecosystem? As the team is busy presenting, please ask yourself whether you are an NGO or you are, from government, whatever stakeholder organization you're from, please ask yourself, where does my organization sit within the ECD ecosystem? And the second question is, what role do we best fit in, or are we best placed as an organization to play within the ecosystem? And the last question is, who do we need to partner with in order to have a greater impact as an organization? We will unpack and clarify that as we go along, because we will have times when we will engage and talk through how do we play our roles actively. Without wasting time, colleagues, I'm going to ask Yaneli to come through again, and then she will then guide this next session of the presentation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Great. I'm going to start with just a recap. So we remember what happened before lunch. I hope that lunch was great and that everyone is feeling energized, not sleepy, as we go into this work. So Monique, if you can just remind us, put the slide on. Monique, if we can just get the slide on the strategy again. So just a reminder, so our big vision, what we really want to achieve collectively is to have universal access to quality early childhood development, prioritizing the most vulnerable children. if we go to the next slide, then we said we want to do this as a social compact. So in the strategy, we already identified the social compact, saying that if we think of the ecosystem currently, the players, so we've got government being responsible for creating this enabling environment. We've got implementing partners that's been playing important role in supporting our early learning programs with coaching and mentoring and infrastructure support and training and nutrition and the whole set of services. So we've got a lot of implementing partners with such useful assets, knowledge, and understanding. How do we establish new ECD programs? How do we support them in terms of this quality journey? We've got donors and funders that's been playing such an important role in supporting our implementing partners in doing their work. We've got business that's come on and they have been playing a role also in investing in specific things and helping and enabling investment in infrastructure, investment in NGOs and various things. And then we've got the sector, the most important one. We've got all the early learning providers, they every day doing exceptional work in helping our children to thrive. And this is a high-level snapshot of the ecosystem. And what we said then is this ecosystem, we need to see how can we get it to work as effectively as possible so that we move from silos or walled gardens to a flourishing rainforest. If we go to the next slide, this is an important thing I forgot about when I spoke earlier, is March last year we had a big event. We called it the Banapele Leadership Summit, where we had leaders from across the sector come together and say, okay, we know what the main vision is, but we need to have very tangible targets for ourselves. How are we collectively committing to what increasing access to quality looks like? And we said that by expanding access, we need to reach an additional 250,000 children by the end of next year, and then 950 more by the end of 2030. So what you'll see, we've already built this idea of exponential change. We know it's going to be slowly, but then from 2028 onwards, we need that exponential peak to happen. In the case of quality, we said we need to obviously improve quality, and we said we want to increase the green. Increase the green being we want more children developmentally on track, using the Thrive by 5 index. We want to increase that proportion from 46 that it was in 2024 to 48 by 2027 to at least 51% by 2030. So more children, so that by 2030 at least half of our children are developmentally on track. But then also importantly, we want to reduce the rate. Those children that's falling far behind and that need significant investment to get developmentally on track, we want to reduce that from 28% in 2024 to 24% in 2027 to 19% in 2030. And obviously then going on, we'll continuously reduce that. We said in terms of resourcing the sector, we want to mobilize financial and non-financial resources from public, private, philanthropic and corporate partners to support this. So if we want to increase access, if we want to improve quality, there's actually two enabling or enablers we need. We need the resourcing to work much more collaboratively together, and we need government to have enabling government systems that are transparent, responsive and integrated as a backbone for the system. So that is what we left the Leadership Summit with in March. And that brought us to the blueprinting process. So Monique, if we go to the next slide, we said that the big question that we all need to solve, the big thing that we're rallying behind, is how can we develop a sustainable early learning ecosystem focusing on those who have historically been excluded, that enables affordable, equitable access to quality early learning programs by 2030 so that every child ways of doing things as a challenge. It is an asset. Like, so we want to move from viewing diversity as a challenge to embracing diversity as a solution. Again, very diverse country. We need very diverse solutions, each to fit the needs of that community in that area. And then we want to move from scaling what works to designing networks that work at scale. And personally, I'm going to, well, the first time I read that, I'm like, no, I don't agree with that. As a researcher, a background, we always want to scale what works. But what we really want to see and figure out is say, let's design something that can actually work at scale. Let's figure out what can work at scale. Because often when we design something small, we pilot here, it's not always scalable. And we've seen that. It's too expensive. It's too difficult. When the moment you scale, you lose fidelity. So how do we move to a mindset that say, what are the networks we need to put in place so that what we are saying can work at scale? So that is a bit of a mind shift change that we all need to go through, me included. Is say we need to collaborate, we need to embrace diversity, we need to think at what can work at scale, how do we build those networks to work at scale so that we achieve this exponential growth that's going to happen. So I think this was just a quick refresher, reminder of where we are, and Tsepo is going to deep dive with us now into the details of, but what does this all mean? Thank you, Tsepo.
Hello, colleagues. How was lunch? What was your favorite thing on your plate? Thank you for coming back, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be presenting, supporting the DB with presenting on the blueprint and the ecosystem. I think as a point of departure, it has been, to give credit where it is due, it has been really encouraging to see the DBE's intention in engaging the ecosystem, even in getting us to this point. And I really am excited about the continued collaboration. And now the intention of this session is so that people in this room can also leave feeling like they're part of this. Mepuling? I hear you. You're right. I've noted there we need communication support around what this is, so that there's sort of one story being told to practitioners everywhere, so that when we are going there to give support, there's already an understanding of what is going on. I'll start here. We only have one mic.
Thanks, Tsepo. Looking at Naledi's journey, this is the ideal path that we want practitioners to follow, principals or any learning program to start there and then follow this path. But the reality is it's sort of, backwards. A lot of the ECD centers or learning programs are started before the learning and growing happens in terms of self-development of the practitioner, the principal, and all of that. So how do we, I think the question that I'm trying to say is this is ideal, but the reality on the ground is not this. We're sort of fixing a lot of what should have happened at step one and working backwards. So we also should be mindful of what the realities on the ground are. Thanks.
Noted. I think that's a really great point, Beleng, because this is a linear journey, and what we see is branches and different routes and paths. And perhaps one of the blockages internally to go back and listen to practitioner stories. Mum Agnes can tell us, what was your registration journey? And we go to another practitioner, what was your registration journey? And start to get a database of different stories from around the country in different municipalities, metros, rural, and hear what has been the journey from those that have already been through it, and that will give us a more, maybe instead of one linear thing, a branching route around how those are happening. Thank you for that input. We need a mic for people online.
Okay, no, thank you. Actually, I wanted to propose that from what I've heard Gloria saying, we thought maybe we are going to get the presentation first. So since we are from different organizations, is then that we are going to come up with the answers of 3 questions that Gloria has just gave as examples. So if we just engage each and every little part of, I think we are going forth and backwards just like that. Can we have the presentation first, and then from there we'll deal with whatever what brought us here.
I hear you. I think what I was going for here is an interactive presentation. This is already the presentation. And we're starting here with a broad view of the presentation of the journey. And this is just so that we can have feedback as we move along. Perhaps what you are looking for is the next slide, which we can go to already. Yes? Oh, sorry. Yes, we can do that.
Thanks, brother. I'm wondering how Naledi identifies the space that she might use. And as part of the broader faith community in the country, we would like to be part of this by identifying underutilized infrastructure in faith communities that can be repurposed for this kind of search. And how does that get built into this picture, because it's the biggest barrier to entry. Yeah.
These are exactly the questions. So what we are getting into is identifying more blockages that are not identified expressly here. And it links to what Josie has been doing also in the abandoned buildings, in how to identify other spaces. So I'm noting that too, that in the first steps area, learning and growing into the first steps, helping identify spaces for ECD in collaboration with local governments also around making space available. And churches, yes, of course. And there's so many of them, and they're mostly used on the weekend, and during the week, the churches are left vacant. Please sit with Naledi's journey, reflect on it in your own organizations from the stories that you have heard and what other blockages that are coming through from there are. Next slide, please. So, in this next one, let me just find my notes. Before I get into this, it's going to be around understanding the ecosystem. And I want to paint a picture to explain this ecosystem. In that, when you are asked, how do you eat an elephant? What's the answer to this? Yes, that's what they say. But I'm going to change that a little bit and give you a different perspective. In that, when you eat an elephant one bite at a time, when are you going to finish it? And by the time you finish it, 2090, exactly. But by the time you get to 2030, most of the elephant will be rotten, and you won't be able to eat it anymore. So we don't eat an elephant one bite at a time. Let's learn from nature. When an elephant falls and dies, different players come and decompose the elephant. We start with the scavengers, the big animals, the vultures, the hyenas, and the lions. And they go for the flesh, right? And they rip it up and they get it open. And then come the insects. Once the lions and the hyenas have eaten the meat, they can't get into those little parts of the elephant. Then the insects come, and they're going into those deeper parts of the elephant. And then we'll have the rodents that are coming afterwards, taking whatever's left and rotten for them. Then we get the little guys, the termites, the microbiomes, or by the small, like sort of bacterias and such things like that are coming to eat it. Even thereafter, I would even say that the trees and the grass, as the remains of the elephant gets into the soil and nourishes the soil. So this is how we ought to see ourselves, as this ecosystem within the wild, coming at this elephant from different directions for different roles and different expertise. The lion would have not been able to get the little meat that's stuck in the middle there, but they're just ripping apart and making it open. So this imagery allows us to see that understanding early childhood development, and another thing to note expressly, is that early childhood development is a holistic endeavor. It is not just early learning. It is around understanding the holistic need of the child. And all those holistic needs are making them ready for school. So when we are thinking about getting ready for school, it's often just the early learning component being spoken of. And so in understanding and honoring the holistic nature of early childhood development is that we have to view it as this ecosystem that we can all participate in. Next slide, please. So now we are at the ecosystem. So what is this ecosystem? The ecosystem exists only when relationships, resources, and responsibilities are working together in real life. Okay? Relationships. We are not going to be working in silos anymore. We have to come together from all parts of the country, from all parts of the sector. Resources. Not just waiting for the DBE to come and give us resources, but understand that where we are standing already, we have the resources. How can we leverage those amongst each other? And also responsibilities. It's what I find when I'm going into communities is that there are two different organizations doing the same thing, duplicating work. How can we better align responsibilities? And it's going to be a difficult task because we're talking at a national level here. But it's going to be a task worth doing. We're not going to stop because it's going to be challenging. So what is going to make the ecosystem work? I identify three things. It's coordination, not control. It's shared assets, not isolated solutions. And it is listening, and a deep sense of listening, not consultations that are once off. So at all levels, this is how we're going to make the coordination of the ecosystem work. Is coordination, shared assets, and listening. What this means really is that without coordination, good work is going to be duplicated. We're going to see gaps remain visible, and practitioners like Naledi will fall through the cracks because they don't have a structured system that is holding them. With coordination, what we see is efforts being multiplied. We are solving at scale. We're not building something small. To scale it, from the get-go, we are building a bus, not a Mini Cooper. Love Mini Coopers. Gaps, with coordination, we'll see that gaps become visible more easily. Because when there's no coordination, my organization thinks your organization is dealing with it. Your organization thinks my organization is dealing with it. But with better coordination, we understand who's holding which part of this. And then also, support arrives before the crisis arises, because we are able to foresee what is going to happen when we are doing that together. In terms of shared assets, what does this mean? This means that the ecosystem is led by shared assets that are available to all that need it. And these mean common tools. We're singing from the same hymn book. Shared platforms, eCares is a good starting point for that. How are we all plugging into that and having shared systems together? Open knowledge. So shared resources. You know, we often think that we come up with things. This is going to take a divine and profound turn. But this is much of our own egos. When we are wanting to support children, we create for the children. So create to share. There's no need to protect things behind paywalls when they are going to be benefiting the whole. So we have to create knowledge with the intention of sharing it. That means even in the creation of it, we have the person reading it in mind. So when we are creating toolkits and manuals and such, we are thinking, who is reading this? People have to have shared understanding of it and create it with that lens. Not the language that you are using within your organization. You know your organization uses these buzzwords. So you're going to create content around those words. And then when it gets out there, no one understands it. So being part of this ecosystem is starting to think collectively. And things like the 2030 strategy and the blueprint provide the entry point dictionary or glossary that we can start working from. Thank you. And I remember when we were doing feedback, because the blueprint was out in the end of last year, and the DBE asked for feedback from the sector. Part of what we were talking about when we took it back to the practitioners on the ground, they were like, this language is feeling different. And that was the feedback we took back to say, the practitioners are not hearing themselves. It's using different language altogether. And we're hoping that in this iteration, we can hear better language that's coming from the practitioners, coming from the people that are taking care of the young children. So language is very, very important because it's really the word. And other shared resources include clear pathways so that people understand where to direct their energy, where to direct their efforts. And lastly, enabling policies. We put it at the end of the journey, but much of this journey is happening at once also. We are developing all parts of it so that the practitioner can move through it in whatever way in a seamless way. So enabling policies at all levels. And colleagues, policies are also, it's not a top-down approach. That's also another thing. You in this room have to participate in policy making. If by the end of your time you have never made a submission to a bill, to a budget, to a legislation, we haven't done enough. What is going to end up happening is that the parliamentarians are going to give us suggestions of what policy needs to be. So we have to ensure that our language is in those policies. That's also something that we have to participate in. And then lastly, listening, which I was going to go to later, but I'll get to it now, is that the ecosystem needs to listen. Listening is not a nice to do. It is the foundation of how we move forward. And listening is not just going into a space one time and leaving, but it is about building it into the entire journey. We listen at the beginning. We give feedback. We go back to listen to what people think about the feedback. We go and incorporate. And we include listening throughout the entire process. And that's to ourselves, to our fellow people in the ecosystem, and to those we're trying to support. I mean, I want to say even the children. How are we listening to the children themselves? Because that's the people we're working with and for. And that has to be included in how we see the ecosystem's success. So coordination, shared assets, and listening. So what we are seeing in front of us here is a visual representation of what this ecosystem looks like. And again, it's sort of, we're at a point where most of the what has been answered. I was saying to Hopolang earlier, giving an illustration that sort of explains this, is that we know the journey we're going on when we know the destination, 2030 universal access, good outcomes, children are thriving by 5. For the past 4 years, we've spent the time building the vehicle, building the bus. And many of us have told that we actually need 6 wheels here on this thing. We actually need X amount of windows. We have built the bus. I'm going to say the bus might not be the best bus right now, right? It might be, I'm not going to name the buses. I studied in Makanda and I traveled 10 hours to the university, so I've done all the buses. But we have a bus and we need to start moving. And I think at some point we will come back to the bus and say, how do we make this bus better for where it's at in the journey? We might get some rough ground later. We might fix the bus again. But right now, let's recognize that the bus is in front of us. Let's get in and start moving. The what has been answered. Now it's the how. So we have this as the what. This is our bus. This is what's going to move us forward, the ecosystem. We have the who is it for. It's for the young children. Done. I don't have to say more about that. It's for the kids, young children. And I guess let me say a little bit. There was a bit of a back and forth in the making of the blueprint about who is it for. Because there was also, is it for the practitioner? Right? Is it for the caregiver? And if you can feel it, it sounds like it can be too. But we decided to make it for the child expressly, inspired Bana Pele, in that seeing the practitioner also as part of the ecosystem. Yes, it doesn't discount that there are things that we have to do for the practitioner to enable the practitioner. So that is not taken out of this. We still have to support the practitioner and do for them. However, see them as active agents. I'm even uncomfortable saying doing it for them. Doesn't sound natural to say. But to understand there's resourcing and support that's required to enable their active participation. So, with who are we working this? This is where, colleagues, I'd like for you to start thinking about where you are fitting in. Who are you in this room? This is the part where, by the end of this, when I give you the pop quiz, I ask you where you're plugging in. You have to sort of be able to see where about. One place, two spaces. We have ELPs, providers, parents, and partners. Community partners, people on the ground. Anyone really who cares about young children can find themselves there. This is the network of care closest to the child. Then again, we have Department of Basic Education and other departments, sister departments. And what we really need to start calling for is that interministerial committee to get off the ground again, led by the Minister of Basic Education. In that, understanding that the DBE can't do it by themselves. There are other departments that needs to come on board. Within that early learning space, yes, much of it is with the DBE, but in understanding the broader sense is those other departments identified as sister departments. How do we engage them in a way that can create shared responsibility and accountability? Provincial departments, local departments too. Then we have, what are we leveraging? This is what is already in the sector. Much of your organizations will find yourself here already doing these things. We have community support groups, so community collectives, forums and such, ELP partner collectives, and civil society collectives. These are you and your networks. You are already working. There's something that you're already doing, part of that ecosystem. Community assets, so what exists? Early learning program knowledge, the knowledge of those who are caring for young children. Community talent. This is understanding how are we going to attract new people to come and support the ECD sector. Is the sector attractive enough that 12-year-olds are saying, when I grow up, I want to be an ECD practitioner? How do we get to that point where people want to join the sector? Nurturing spaces, nearby facilities, and data insights. So if you are in those spaces, how can you support that work? And then enabled by, this is what we are developing, what we are building now together within the bus, those little bits and pieces that still need to be created. But much of it has, but built stronger. So these are support systems of care. A shared narrative, coming back to that languaging. How are we speaking about early childhood development? Yesterday I was saying on the panel, one of the things that I've appreciated is the shift from just noticing ECD as child outcomes, but recognizing it as nation building, recognizing ECD as an issue of justice and equity. And that's part of that shared narrative, so that when we're speaking to those outside of the sector, they can get the gravitas of this thing. We're talking about talent development, ELP providers, tech support, ELP impact hubs, communities of practice. And then government systems for support, ecosystem orchestration. This is sort of where the dance is going to happen, and a lot of figuring out is still going to happen. Because the ecosystem does not want to abdicate, is the word abdicate. It doesn't want to, we don't want the ecosystem to take away constitutional obligations from the DBE. It's still the holder of the sector, right? But what we are trying to do is to shift power and agency to the sector. Does that make sense? We're shifting power and agency to the sector so that the work is happening ground up, but we still have leadership and guidance from the DBE, collectively and collaboratively. We have effective policies, government systems, and funding orchestrations. So this then creates that ecosystem. Before I move any further, I see a lot of crinkled up foreheads. Is it because you can't see there, or you have thoughts? A lot of thoughts. Let's ventilate a few now. Do you want to start? Please wait for the microphone.
I work in the water sector as well sometimes, and there was also the idea of sharing power, and it hasn't worked there. So in a way, nobody's looking after our water at the moment. It was meant to devolve power down to communities. And did government abdicate its responsibility? And community still doesn't have the power to look after its own water. But then I thought, no, this is all the crinkles here. You're talking about an ecosystem. In an ecosystem, you have top down, that's the sunshine. The sun shines down, and the plants grow up. So you have top down and you have bottom up. It's possible in an ecosystem, provided you understand that metaphor, which is not a hierarchical one. So if we can have the language to talk about our system that is not hierarchical, we can have top down and bottom up, but let's not use those words.
Anyone else, colleagues? I'm just supporting Tsepo. I love the analogies. I love the elephant and now the sunshine. That is just so perfect. There is so much going on. And in fact, thank you. You actually brought in a presentation that just makes sense. And it helps things to just fit in. If only we did not have a people problem. Now, in an ideal ecosystem, where the humans that are interacting in that ecosystem do not want to compete for food and kill each other to get the best, or want to work in their own spaces alone, or just want to hog the resources that they have and not want to share. And I think as we are advocating for this, because I think this is an advocacy program that must be part of a well-coordinated campaign that must go through all media. And I think the test of that would be this coordination of the sector itself at the basest levels. Now, what is happening is that in big cities, and you see this possible. What about rural areas? What about informal settlements in the smaller municipalities and RDP settlements in the far-flung municipalities? How do you make this coordination so that there is one voice of the sector, so that when it then interacts with government, at least it does have one voice, and that that is that. And then you find, again, the people problem. If you come, because I fit in a local government environment, there are pockets of excellence in various municipalities of different size of how they are dealing with the ECD. Maybe let us identify those where the spatial planning automatically includes ECDs, where they will assess that if we have this kind of a population size in this area, the special will say, okay, this population is going to grow, even the one that is being built, and therefore there must be a site for an ECD center. You have that already in the space. Now, so how do we encourage that to make sure that it is not forgotten, that voice now influencing the planning even for new settlements, even when settlements have grown and the existing ECD centers are no longer able to serve? How do we then work to either make them bigger or get another establishment as the demand grows? You have said something about focusing on the kid. You know, that is well and good, and we should, but then again we have a whole. Okay, so I don't know if I should call it ecosystem, but I think whilst we are focusing on kids, then there must be another framing where to make it also grow bigger in my space, the local government space, where you are going to be able to say, you know what, the ECD program is going to integrate with the broader municipality priorities. For example, local economic development is going to contribute to local economic development, because you are going to create jobs for people, and therefore you are going to have people that are going to contribute to the economy, so that local economic development can then have that sector as part of its planning, and so that if there are programs that support that sector that are available in municipalities, because under LED you have also the EPWP program, so that you're saying, okay, we need people who are going to come and train and help these little ones to learn how to sew, how to crochet, how to build little blocks. I love the China model where the playground is doing real things, not Lego, but they are playing real things. They're selling us Lego, but they're doing real things in their kindergartens. Now, where we're going to use EPWP funding to say, okay, LED, if there is this, in this ECD, can you get us, and this would be, I'm imagining here, an ECD practitioner that knows their story, that knows what they want out of the kids, that they want them to contribute to the economy, that will say, you know, I want LED manager, I want to create a work opportunity for someone with bricklaying skills. I want that person to come and train to play with my kids on how to build a house. I want to play to someone an elderly person who knows how to crochet. I want her to play with my kids. I'm going to so EPW program. You pay 2-3 days a week, and that is the playing environment. So now you are getting. You know, you're increasing the economy. People are getting money, and it's around an ECD. And then again, you talk about women's livelihood, care work, and how do we make care work to be paid work? And you frame it like that. You frame like as a public health issue, like you're framing like, okay, where are our children are going to school, to kindergarten? What kind of infrastructure is there? So that it's everybody's problem to improve the existing infrastructure instead of being the ECD practitioner's problem. So that the community around the ECD will start looking into, okay, now we're framing it, this is a women's livelihood thing, a public health issue, and a special justice issue. We deserve, even our kids do not have to get taxis that are dangerous to go to a far-flung ECD center when we have a site here. But the problem is that the site now that we have here is a shack that is dilapidated. Now, how do we work together to make, even if it's we're going to still build a shack, but a decent one that is going to give out. So I think I want that framing. Even the ECD practitioner itself making a livelihood out of the work that they are doing, whilst loving the work that they're doing. So if we frame it like that as well, and come with that angle, it becomes easier for municipalities to prioritize. and even those that are really constrained in resources, they will be able to see that this makes sense. It contributes to the broader priorities of the municipalities, and therefore it gets in there. And that discussion must happen because ECDs are equipped to bring the arguments in the space from a ward level up. And because at a municipal level, those forums are going to be able to consolidate what has been agreed upon in the ward, come and monitor it in the ITP forum at a municipal level, where that is being chaired by the mayor, so that you are able to bring in to follow up. Is it what has made it to the ITP, and because what is not going to be necessarily be funded by the municipality, but once it is there, all the sectors know that this is the priority, and therefore they must bring in the funding. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tsepo. I don't know if my submission will necessarily create a debate, but I want to say what you said when presenting actually covered a lot of things. It is unfortunately that some of the things cannot be captured here, but what you said also covered what was raised earlier on. There are a number of things that you need to understand. Number one, that most of the ECD centers are privately owned, and then it depends where they are being established. It depends on the situation or the settlement around they are found. It will differ from one settlement to the other, depending on where those particular people are found. In the first place, you may find a situation where the area is owned by traditional leaders. The situation there will differ from areas where they are controlled largely by the municipalities. So as to who or how are we going to make sure that there is land available or whatever is going to happen, it will always differ. And then it will also be influenced by a number of things. It will be looking at the need. It will be looking at the population around that particular area. So there is a lot that is going to affect the existence of centers. So we cannot confine it to a particular approach, but I must agree with you. Once you have indicated the issue of local government, it addresses a lot of things. There is what maybe we should then say, what is it that we can do to make sure that we address those particular issues that are being raised? We must also remember that centers are privately owned. It depends on a particular individual who will decide to establish a center in that particular area. So when we are to take an approach that maybe says it is the government that comes with those centers, then it is going to be different. So there is a lot that we need to focus on. We're not necessarily disagreeing what was said earlier on, but we must agree that there is a lot that affects the existence of centers. There are a lot of people that needs to be attended, or a lot of issues that need to be taken into consideration. But I hope what you said earlier on covers a lot of things. And then what we must agree upon is that not everything that you have said can be captured in a piece of paper. So we need to look at those particular things. Thank you very much.
So, sorry, Tsepo, I'm just thinking about also tomorrow when we're getting into reporting. And I think perhaps what I am seeing as something that is missing, I think that has been surfaced by the contributions that came from the floor, from this as a point of departure. Because a point of departure here is how can we develop a sustainable early learning ecosystem focused on those historically excluded. But I think, for instance, I was listening to the contribution by Nozi, and it brings me back to perhaps something that should precede this, which is the why. Why is ECD everybody's business? Before we can then say that how. Why is it everybody's business? And I think you've also used some words where you were trying to actually show why is it everybody's business. But I think perhaps as a commission, I think it's important that we land that as the very first punch tomorrow, that everybody in the room, we get a shared understanding that it is everybody's business. And then we get to the how can we. Then if we agree that we are all actors in the ecosystem, it is interested. I beg your pardon, it is in my interest and yours and yours and yours. And then we then can then get to this question of then how then do we then enable this ecosystem. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Couldn't agree more. I think I was also reflecting on what Osnozi was saying, in that it doesn't necessarily take us back at all, actually, because we know in this room the why. But what you were saying is, how do we communicate it to the others so that they come to the party? And I understand that language very well, being in advocacy. We speak a lot about self-interest. For people to do things, they don't do it if you tell them to do it. They do it if they're inspired from themselves to do it. So when we are talking to local government, we don't frame it as school outcomes. We frame it as community development. And a ward councillor will understand what community development means, and we say there is no such thing as community development without early childhood development. When we were talking on the budget advocacy last year, we had a big campaign around that. We were talking about economic outcomes. We were talking about the Heckman equation. For every $1 invested in ECD, $7 comes out of it. And when we are able to speak about economic outcomes for ECD, then the people who are handling the money, Treasury, they get to understand, oh, this is why it's important for us to participate. The DBE, their main focus will be child outcomes, school outcomes. So that's how we frame it. When we're talking to the Department of Labor, we're talking about gender justice. We're talking about black women largely leading the sector, being a historically marginalized group. And that's how we communicate it. Care work being essential to that too. When we're talking to health, we're talking about public health outcomes. And when we're talking to the president, we talk about nation building, right? So this is not necessarily going back to explain the why. It's inviting them into the how. And that is going to be part of the shared narrative. We understand it in-house. When we're communicating it, we are intentional about who are we speaking to. It's what I was talking about when I was saying, when we develop material, we have the reader in mind. So if I'm developing material for local government, I'm not going to focus on child outcomes. They're there, but I'm going to focus on community development. So that is what we're talking about, and well captured, and it will be taken forward. And then also appreciating the top-down, bottom-up approach. I think it's absolutely essential to put that in there, in that maybe the language of top-down becomes a red herring, is that the word? Where people sort of be like, oh, it's already sort of overpowering. But the essence of that needs to be captured. Because if that's not the case, what we're going to find is that we're going to have communities that are already resourced moving faster than those that are not resourced. We're going to see an uneven capacity building where practitioners are already active, there's going to be a lot more work. And where there's sort of like practitioner disengagement, no work will be there. So we still need sort of that top-down wording for now, in that we need an overarching, like overlooking system that is in leadership from the DBE. But what is important to note is that the agency and the power is at the bottom. That's where the plant's growing. That's what's providing the oxygen for us to breathe, right? And how do we balance that out? And also another important thing is that empowerment must not mean communities fending for themselves. Empowerment is supported and resourced, and that resource has to come from somewhere. So we don't just say you have to do this, but we have to do this, and how are you going to do that? And then also protecting against burnout of practitioners on the ground, because much of this also gives a lot of the practitioners a lot of responsibility, and they're already holding a lot. So how do we distribute labor amongst the ecosystem and also support practitioners to participate? You know, in trying to get practitioners to go to places like IDP meetings and budget submissions, it requires money for them to transport themselves there. They're also leaving their centers. Who are they leaving it with? So we have to sort of balance those things out. And it speaks to that sort of top-down, bottom-up. Maybe like a sandwich? I don't know. We'll figure it out. And then to the point that the gentleman has made at the end there, sorry, Ntate, libiso la hao, kana? Opa. Thank you for your submissions. And it's an important one to note in that we don't have one South Africa. There are many realities in South Africa. That what is happening in Ngoshwa is very different from what is happening in Breede Valley, from what is happening in Rustenburg. And the support that is needed there is going to be different too. So that is also captured within the actions to say there has to be no one size fits all. And that is why it's so important to collaborate with community-based organizations and local governments, those that are already in the community who understand the context. So following this is now, we started with Naledi's story, which just gives us the picture. This is a little bit more detailed, but we're going to go more detailed around the actions. And in those actions, we will see things like understanding the local context and elevating localized solutions that are fitting the problems as they arise. How to engage with inclusion and diversity, and making diversity an asset, not a threat. So those are the details that are not captured in a slide like this, but in the Banapele blueprint, you will see them fleshed out in detail under each action. So we have 23 actions that have been co-created currently to deal with that journey and to support the actors to know what actions they need to do. So to sort of close us off here in understanding the ecosystem, we need to create enabling conditions, provide direct support, generate knowledge and data, connect, convene, fund, and remove barriers and frictions. That is what the activities that we're going to go into are going to try and do. So now we're going to go into the granular. And I know we're going to jump out of our seats because there are 23 actions. And there are infinite problems in some of our hearts. I want to, again, take us back to the bus to say, as this bus has these 23 wheels, let's work to identify ourselves within that, and then where actions are missing, it's legitimate and we're not closing them out. We're going to take them and try to see where they can be integrated if possible, where it's not, leave it for another iteration where we put it in a parking lot to say what can be done. Because if we don't move now in 2026, we have 4 years left until 2030. We did so well last year with the Banapele mass registration, meeting the target of 10,000 registrations by September, 2 months before we needed to do it. So we're already moving fast. Yaneli showed you the projections of how many we want to reach. So we need to keep moving, and this is where that exponential stuff starts, where we're identifying the actions. So Mbali, would you please do me a favor and hand out some of the actions that we have? So Mbali is going to, at random, give you an action, because I didn't want to stand here and sit and read 23 actions to you. But what we're going to do is, you're going to get an action. One of you will get an action. And I'm asking for your participation in reading it out clearly and loud so that we are able to hear you. I'll run around with the mic this time. So what the actions are about, this is what brings the blueprint to life. It makes it practical. So the what is done. This is the how. Okay. How are we going to get universal access by 2030? These are the actions that the sector has seen as the immediate next steps. What we want to do is understand these actions already get to think which action do you feel you can support. Not just support, work on. And then we're going to collect that. And when we're orchestrating the ecosystem, we're going to call you to say, hey, you remember you said. Okay, are they all out? Not everyone will get there, only 23. So who has action 1?
DBE to appoint a respected leadership orchestration team.
Thank you. This is speaking to that top-down support, that orchestration team. And I'll just explain briefly what each one means. So this action is about who's going to be the team that is doing the job of the coordination, the connection, and the keeping momentum. So what we learn very quickly is that if an orchestration collective of people are not supported by a strong backbone, momentum will end. And so we're going to need a team that is held together that is going to support that movement. Action 2.
Strengthen existing systems and policies to improve access for children with additional support needs, including those with disabilities.
Exactly. So this action ensures that policies and practical guidelines make it easier for children with disabilities or additional needs to access and participate meaningfully. This is around inclusivity. Action 3.
Deepen collaboration between provincial education departments and local government through the Banapili Eco Hub.
Yes. So this is around creating shared learning and coordination spaces at localized level, and municipalities and provinces being part of that, that can work together more effectively and coordinating efforts. So, colleagues, please listen through these things because this is where the detail of how it's done is coming across. Action 4.
Publish open and technology standards and guidelines.
This is coming back to that shared knowledge. It's making sure that different digital systems can talk to each other, reducing duplication and making life easier for practitioners and officials to engage with. Getting that shared language and making sure that what we are developing within our organization is shared and open and can benefit all. Action 5.
Explore innovations that enable the ECD subsidy to work more strategically.
Yes. So this is exploring how subsidies can do more than just going to the practitioners, but really support the improving of quality, inclusion, and equity. Action 6.
Thank you. Establish a co-financed Banapili Accelerator Fund.
We are grateful for the funding that we got last year, but it's not enough for where we are going. So we need to unlock additional investment. Action 7.
Mobilized increased investment to support new early learning micro-entrepreneur.
Beautiful. This is about connecting finance, stipends, and livelihood support for those providing learning or early childhood development services. Action 8.
Form a dedicated funding orchestration team.
This coordinating public, private, and philanthropic funding so resources flow where they are most needed. Identifying where those resources are most needed and taking them there. Action 9. Co-create a compelling shared narrative. This is around the story we tell about ECD, our why and what is the why for everyone else, around people's interests. 10.
Commission creative agencies to develop user-friendly materials.
Again, shared narratives. turning a shared narrative into a practical and accessible tool, right? It's not enough to say that it's important for community development when we're not explaining that to the local context as what does that mean for your context. So now we're going to ELP provider knowledge, action 11.
Launch a national knowledge sharing initiative.
Great. Creating a way for practitioners and partners to share what works. This is learning from each other and being able to learn. If this forum has had success, what has worked in that forum? Action 12.
Establish a multi-stakeholder capacity building body.
That's good. Coordinating how practitioners are supported so pathways into, within, and beyond ECD are clear. I'm going to stop there because we're rushing through it. But now we are at 12 actions, right? To recap them, is that we have actions around ecosystem orchestration, around effective policies, around government systems, funding orchestration, shared narratives, and provider knowledge. That's where we are. So these are really trying to get us into the what needs to be done by who, when, how. And, you know, to give also to appreciate is that this is a big step back where we're at, considering where we started in 2022 at the first Lekgotla, where we are now getting detail. And also, colleagues, let also this be part of how we start building accountability. So when we are back at next year's Lekgotla, come back with these papers of the actions, and let's ask about where these actions are, right? So that we can build accountability from the beginning, not when things fail. So we're going to move over to developing talent. That's action 12. Who has that one? Oh, sorry, 13. No. Oh, we did 12. Okay, sorry. Action 13. Could you wait for a mic? There are people online, so they need to connect through the mic.
Action 13, launch a unified digital platform.
Yes. This is bringing existing platforms together so practitioners can access learning, support, and connection in one place. We have so many apps going around is that practitioners get confused. Which one is useful, which one is helpful? One space where this can be happening. Action 14.
Yeah, it's under 13. I'm happy because I had this in my mind. I heard everybody talking about crime. Who are the criminals? People were talking about kids, learners, but at least this action 13 talks about the practitioners most. And I thank you for that.
I appreciate that input. 14.
Action 14, establish the Banapili engagement platform.
This is under that theme of technological systems that are supportive. It's creating sustained two-way communications between ELP providers and the government so that they feel connected and they can have their questions answered. Ambitious, hey? But this is what it takes. And we are here, they're written down, there's accountability measures. Community collectives, action 15.
Catalyze local Banapele community hubs.
This is supporting local spaces where families, practitioners, and leaders can mobilize around early learnings as shared responsibility. Plugging into those community forums, ECD forums, other collectives that can be leveraged. Action 16.
Launch a peer-to-peer club network for ELPs.
About enabling practitioners to learn from and support one another, reducing isolation and strengthening local ecosystems.
Action 17, create a fast-track policy escalation process.
That excites me a lot. Allowing urgent issues, especially those affecting child safety, as mentioned earlier, to be raised and resolved quickly across government spheres. Action 18.
Action 18, promote the widespread and sustained adoption of community feedback mechanisms.
Yes. This is where we are listening, ensuring that families, practitioners, and communities can regularly shape how systems evolve, not just be consulted once. Community talent, Action 19.
So Action 19, launch the Open Banapele Network.
What this means is that we are building a platform that connects new and emerging practitioners to learning, delivery, and financing opportunities. Action 20. Bobuka Magnus.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry. Mobilize partners. Mobilize partners to repurpose and use public and community buildings.
This is coming to the points that have been shared in this room around unlocking safe, trusted local spaces like halls and faith-based buildings to expand access to learning. Many are finding themselves there. 21.
Integrate key health tools like the Road to Health booklet into the ELP provision.
Strengthening links between early learning and health so children's development, nutrition, and well-being are supported together. 22.
Action 22, establish open interfaces, APIs, access protocols, and dashboards.
Making data more accessible and useful so decisions are guided by real-time evidence, especially those closest to the child. And then Action 23. How appropriate.
Yeah, divine intervention. Establish a national data observatory.
Thank you. So this is about ensuring an entire ecosystem continuously learns, improves, and adapts as conditions and needs change. This is us taking the bus in for service as we move along, to understand that some things on the bus, as we have it right now, are going to need to change as we learn more and more about it. So this pulls together a very long document of many pages that is called the Banapele Shared Blueprint. And what that Banapele Shared Blueprint does, it expands on all of these categories and actions. Please, colleagues, if you have not gotten a copy of that yet, are they available, Yaneli? Online. Please get a link before you leave this room if you do not have access to the Banapele Blueprint. And I would love for you, I would instruct you, if I may, to print it out and read it. Have a highlighter with you and engage with it. This is going to be our document, at the very least, for this year in understanding how we move forward and prime that exponential growth. So that when you are sitting with it, reading it, active reading, this is what I'm prompting, active reading, not passive skimming on a screen. Active reading, engaging with the document, and finding yourself in it. You are there. From reading the actions in the room already, you can identify yourself within some of these actions. So that's what we would love for you to do in identifying how to participate in the actions. Next slide. Is there one? Oh, okay. So as I was saying, listening is a very important part of this movement. And it's going to require, again, a shift in how we have done things before. Admittedly, it has for too long been just top-down, where people are coming into the community with a already baked cake and telling us, taste the cake. What we're going to be doing is having a system of listening throughout that process. It's already begun, because the Banapele doesn't come out of nowhere. Contextually, the Banapele comes from the 2030 ECD strategy, which then that was the what needs to be done. What needs to be done was that strategy. But upon reflection on that strategy, it was missing the actions, the how. So the Banapele flows from there, but even in that development, there was broad consultation that got us to where the actions are and what are the actors of that ecosystem. But we're going to intensify this listening in moving forward, because we need to learn how are you relating to the actions and how are you capacitated in seeing the actions through. So that's also a space where if your organization does a lot of listening, we want to learn to collectively so that we can do that meaningfully. Feedback loops being completed, not just having sort of WhatsApp polls, but meaningful engagement. That's all on this slide. Well, and the people who need to be listened to are all stated here, but we already went through those. Those are all the actors. Listening to each person and what are those interests that align us. Next one. We've already been listening, as I sort of made this much more interactive than that this has suggested, because it was only at this point where we would have inputs. But we will listen again and hear reflections on the actions and which actions are exciting you. What we're going to then do afterwards is Gloria is going to come, and should you take it from here already? More general questions. So more questions. I'm inspired to hear more around what is exciting you. Which action do you think is really where you would like to start? But questions are also welcome, and comments. Please, the floor is open.
Any questions? You have heard about the action plans, the action map, the blueprint. Any questions, any thoughts, any comments? I've noted a hand, and then I'll come back.
Can I go ahead? Yeah. Tsepo, thank you so much. This has been tremendous. I think it's important. Some of us have been on this journey for quite a while, blueprinting for quite a while. Our fingers are blue, our minds are blue, our tongues are blue. But it is important to contextualize the blueprint, understanding that within the 2030 strategy, there are pieces of that strategy that are not represented here. And that includes parenting, and that includes the 0 to 2s. And I think it's very important that we just make sure that people, those who maybe haven't been exposed to this is a very specific sort of component of the 2030 strategy that we need to consider. And so I know DBE is actively looking at those other areas, but yeah, it's focusing primarily on ELPs, 3 to 5 year olds. And absolutely, that's where we really do want to get universal access and quality programming. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Tsepo, for that presentation. I have two questions. The first one, and I think it's already been alluded to by Osnozi and Uskulula earlier on, but it's around context and getting a sense of the status quo. I know Yaneli, when she began, she did give us sort of an overview of how far things have come along since, the move to DBE from social development and what's been happening. But I think for other partners that are sort of still new to the space, it would be useful to get a sense of what is the status quo. So you've had the 2030 strategy coming up. So it's just so that we understand premise for these 23 actions. So for instance, if we're talking ecosystem orchestration, I mean, where are you? What has been done thus far? So that we don't spend, especially now, I know it might not be the perfect setting for it, but so that there's a sense of understanding of what's already been done, so that we don't do what you emphasized earlier on, reinventing the wheel and speaking things that already exist in the system. And I don't know how you do this, but I heard you speaking of another iteration. What might be useful is a visual that sort of tabulates or depicts where we are in the journey along some of these. I believe some of these processes already have started one way or the other, because that also makes it easier for us to think through where and how we plug in. So your provocations were around what role could we play, who do we partner with. I'm already thinking of people, but it might be that these are organizations you're already working with one way or the other. So that's just the one. The other two was around this, when you were talking about tech infrastructure, And there's been a lot of conversation around, platforms and tools and strategies. But DBE itself has quite a lot of these digital tools. And so my question is around how do you synthesize that internally before the question is posed to us as partners, around one sort of unified voice or one place where there are digital tools and responses. I mean, there's been a lot of mention of e-cares. There's at some point talk of the CSTL toolbox, because that covers all these different topics, including the things that speak to early childhood development. So how do you make sense of those? And so this is a way to throw it back to DBE, but to throw it back, I suppose, to broader government, also around synthesizing these kinds of tools. One last one, sorry, Gloria, is just around the Impact Hub. And again, I think I've spoken to this a little bit around what's existing in the space. The Department of Cooperative Governance has the National Strategic Hub, which they launched, I want to say, last year. And they have a dashboard on early childhood development already. So things like established National Data Observatory. Is this the envisionment to be something like the Gauteng City Region Observatory? Is it to be something like that's a part of the National Strategic Hub? Remember, the COCTA's National Strategic Hub is presented as one single source of truth for all of government. So it means all of government must get their information or their data from there, whether it's local municipalities doing population-based planning, as Osnozi was alluding to, and what the 2030 strategy already speaks to when you're talking about having ECD centers and how you resource them and how you have a plan around how they factor into whether it's informal settlement upgrade, whatever that looks like. So these things, that's why I was asking around, what is the status, what has been, what exists, what's been surfaced, what's come up, what is available, what has been explored also in relation to some of these things like an ELP, the Established National Data Hub Observatory and the one around tech infrastructure. Thanks.
I've noted somebody that side. I'll give you a minute.
Thank you so much. I think I want to put an idea of practice inclusivity. At early childhood, we don't have centers that are that are helping, for example, autism children. And at that early age, it's so frustrating for the practitioners. They don't know what to do. And if I can remember, we do have that facility, but it's taking older children and the severe one. But at ECD, we do have kids that we identify, that the doctors, they did identify. But the parents, they are struggling to have the centers, because the center that they have in Region J, it's expensive, plus minus 60,000. And now we find ourselves having the children that parents are stuck. They don't know what to do. I remember yesterday when I arrived, the teacher was telling me that, did you address the matter, because it's frustrating. I got a learner in the grade R that, many times it's difficult for the teacher to teach if you do have that child. And we do approach the parents. The parents, it's like stuck because cannot find the center that is that he can afford. The other thing is that we need the support from up so that they can come down there, so that we can know what to do. Because if the parents are frustrated, and also the center, you are frustrated as well, at the end of the day, the child is suffering. And the other thing is that we need the support or mentorship from up to the ground regarding the safety. Some of our ECDs, they are next to the road, the main road. I remember it's the third year that I applied for the speed humps, and it's very difficult to get the permanent speed humps. Where we are, we have to wake up very early in the morning to put the temporary ones, and we don't have help. So I'm just asking myself if the DBE or Department of Education can have a way of coming down to help us, because the procedure that we took, I remember we did call the JR. They were saying No, at the moment we did not receive your petition. We are still waiting for your petition from the authorities. We went so many times to find for the answer, but we did not. And that speed humps, like the temporary ones, it did help because since we had those temporary speed humps, there are no more accidents. Before accidents, they were happening where we lost a 7-year child in the primary school in Gyasha Park Primary School. And the authorities have a knowledge of that. So now, as the ECD practitioner, there are things that we find ourselves stuck where we don't know where to go. But the support and the mentorship will be able to help us, or the partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was the first set of questions. We'll take one more and then we will respond.
Thank you so much. I heard Tsepo talking about a bus. And that bus, for sure, it needs, the way it's so big, it needs so many drivers. The question I have now, do you have a driving school where the drivers are supposed to get the driver's license? My question comes to this. Are you using the very same old practitioners who just open up their ECD centers behind their kitchens in such a way that are they fit for purpose? Because one thing for sure is that it's not easy to teach an old line new hunting skills. You can have all the ingredients to make a nice cake, a 3-story one. But if you don't have a professional baker, we are coming back to zero. So my plea is, even if I regard this as a belt, the reason why there's a belt, it has this other part and that other part. Even if your trouser is bigger than you, but once you have a belt, it will stay on you. So the ECD and the tertiary level, they must come together. Because as of now, we are experiencing a hell of a problem where students, the TVET students cannot even read or write. And it's not a joke. So I think we need to come together. I need assistance from that. Thank you.
Thank you for all the questions. One more, Erica? Yes, this is the last question. We'll come back.
Sorry, I can't get up. My chair is stuck. I didn't get to introduce myself. My name is Erica. I represent Sesame Workshop International South Africa, and we're the home of Takalani Sesame. And please do sing our theme song. Okay, nobody. Thank you. One of the roles that I play at Sesame Workshop is that of a gender advisor. And we know that the ECD space is very gendered. Although when we speak of gender, we normally think women. But if we think that the ECD space is very gendered in terms of mostly women and very few men, and then if I link that to the presentation we had around Fathers Matters and the work that we have done around fathers and fathers' inclusion within the first 1,000 days and beyond of a child's life, I would like us to have a look then also of how we look at these actions that we have through a gendered lens. I miss that. Happy to be involved in the process if you want me to, but that's something that we need to look at. Because if we want to change the attitudes of, or perceptions, if I can use Heartline's words, if we want to change those perceptions, we need to also change the very system that our children are involved in their formative years.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you for those inputs. Just briefly responding to them, I want to start off with acknowledging and appreciating Mark's input, and it's a very important one to make because it goes back to the heart of holistic ECD from conception to 9 in the full breadth of it. And what the blueprint is aiming to do strategically is to recognize the early learning centers as an entry point of immediate support. So yes, there is a limitation within that broader framing of early childhood development, and the blueprint is looking at the early learning program, getting access to those, increasing access and quality. And it's important to bring up, and I'm grateful that you did, because we have to come back and still call back the DBE on the other elements when the time is right and the opportunity arises, right? So that we do not forget the 0 to 2 that are not in the centers. It's still ECD, and if the function is with the DBE there, the question is still with them. It is up to them to call the other partners that are enabling that. Thank you, Mark. And then with regard to the context and status quo, I think that's such a great input, because it is true. A lot of things are already being done. For example, when you look at policy, effective policies, we're already working hard at the local level around IDPs. We've been working with Early Care Foundation in Rustenburg for 2 years now, 3 coming into the 3rd year, where practitioners are being mobilized. In Orange Farm, we've been working there. In other municipalities too. So that is being done at local government. We have the Children's Amendment Bill that has been worked through in the past few years that is also around effective policy. So not to mention that would leave us in a place where we think there are no policies, right? So other things like funding. We just got budget last year that historically is highest we've ever gotten, right? So we're not starting from zero with funding. So it's important for the blueprint to also express where we are right now. And an idea would be sort of a living digital tool, like you say, with the graphs to say, this is what's done. So I can click on government systems and there see what is done. It will also make it easier for people to know what can I do, not duplicating what's already been done. That's a great input. And as part of that, I think also, if I may also make the suggestion, is that how do we onboard actors, ecosystem actors? Onboarding them is so that they understand the history of this, they understand what is being done, and also they are trained. This is that driving school you're talking about. Actors are not just expected to arrive and know what to do. ECD is confusing. It really, really is, because it's everything. It's everything, right? So for us to be here and understand what we know, we have had to grow up with it. So we have to also take new actors through their first 1,000 days, so that they can understand, and that trains them. And that includes practitioners too. So we're bringing in training organizations, universities, and so on and so forth. How do we embed the blueprint's aims into how ECD practitioners are trained? So that is included here too. And on the question of hubs, I think this is where a lot of support is needed. Not to speak on behalf of the DBE, but I would assume the DBE doesn't have a lot of experience in connecting with community hubs in that way. And it's brave of them to have put this here, but a welcome effort. But a lot of it still needs to be constructed as to how. Yaneli and I have been having conversations about it because I'm connected with ECD practitioners, and we're trying to think about how can we create processes that connect the DBE to ECD forums in this instance, but to community groups more generally, and have that as a system within how DBE works, not just as something we do when we need to consult. So we're already sort of having conversations about that, but please, we are welcoming you to come and carry those conversations further with us. And then around special needs and specialized support, I think that's part of this action in terms of supporting special needs. But what you're raising is also an important one around specialized support, right? Not just putting a young child within a bigger context and helping them find themselves, but what does specialized support look like? And this is also around developing talent, that action, getting people into the sector that can address that. And to your point too is around training practitioners, linking to the bus driving school, training practitioners around offering support for special needs. So that's also part of this, and I think it's going to require a lot of listening from what a practitioner is actually dealing with in the centers. Not to assume that we know what the special needs, what young children who have special needs need, but to go what are practitioners experiencing with regard to caring for young children. We will get vastly different answers in that way. And then in terms of ECD as a gender issue, couldn't agree more in terms of and working with that lens in mind. Otherwise, we're going to keep solving for it every time. And part of it is around deep-rooted ideologies that we hold as South Africans around the role of a father and around nurture and who can nurture. There's this sort of cultural understanding that nurture is a woman thing, but it's really not. But we perpetuate it when we sort of don't create the space for fathers to sort of express and explore what nurture feels like for them. And it's not an easy thing, I will say that, because of sort of some deeper rooted things that men are dealing with. But the space needs to be provided so that they can explore that without judgment, so that they can learn through it. So, Erica, you're very welcome to come on board. I was speaking to the Fathers Matter colleagues yesterday, and I was also just so inspired by the work that they have been doing to come on so that the systems are informed from that perspective from the get-go. Thank you. Erica, please, very short. I'm going to stop you if...
In the needs analysis that we did with over 3,000 people, 91% of the fathers said they want to be involved.
Great. That was really short and impactful. Thank you. That's my time. Otherwise, I won't be invited back.
Thank you, Tsepo. I think there's just also one response I wanted just from this conversation, and I hope, I'm not sure if you've picked up on what we've tried to subliminally do here today, but we didn't have government say, this is what we will be doing. We had the sector say, this is what we will be doing. So every time Tsepo used the word accountability, no, it's joint accountability. This is what we as the ecosystem is signing up for. I must say jointly, this is what we want to do, this is the roles we want to play. So as DBE, we say we have to lead. We have to be the sun. We have to be the orchestrators, the dot connectors, the enablers, the engines driving this. But we have to do this collectively. So that's why we're using I know we got feedback, the word orchestration, no one understand it. But if we think about that, we're all one symphony orchestra here, all playing different instruments. But there's a group of people that needs to invite all the instruments, needs to make sure the instruments are there. And that is what we say the orchestration team will be doing. It's one of our actions to say we need to set up a team that will help us connect, help us guide us, steer us. And that is one of the things that we will action hopefully very quickly this year to get all of this off the ground. So I just wanted to explain that orchestration means bringing us together. That is what our hand is up for, making sure these actions happen. But then we need everyone to come on board and say, we want to help with these actions.
Thank you, Anneli. Can we clap hands to Anneli and Tsepo? This was not easy, right? I mean, it's like, the blueprint is not easy to explain the way that we tried to. So well done, team, for doing that. The next part is, this is now where we are going to answer questions. I'm not sure if you are familiar with Mentimeter. Now we have to ask ourselves the big question, like Yaneli was saying. How can we develop a sustainable early learning ecosystem, focusing on those who have historically been excluded, that enables affordable, equitable access to quality learning, early learning programs by 2030, so that every child can thrive by 5. So this is now the big question. And now through Mentimeter, we are asking that you are able to respond. So there's 4 questions that we are asking after that presentation. If you've got a phone, a mobile phone, please go to www.mentimeter.com. And immediately when you put that passcode, you'll see on top there, the passcode is 46625484. It will take you automatically to this question. And what we are asking, the first question that we are asking, I know I'll give you time to go in. Let me know once you've done that. 46625484. Okay? Anyone in? www.mentimeter.com. That's the website. And you will see there's a blog where it's asking you for a user code to join. Anyone in? Okay, you've already voted before I even give. So the first question is, how achievable do you think the big ask of the blueprint is? So the answers is, if you are giving us an answer of 1, you are saying it's not achievable at all. So 10 is the highest. Anyone struggling? I'm hearing voices. Is there anyone who's not in? And then yeah, if colleagues who are in, if you can please help. Nowadays, Mentimeter, you go straight. With the code, you just go in. It's easier. That's why 90% of the people are in. Do they? Yeah, sorry, we didn't do that. Are you okay? So you go to www.mentimeter.com, and then there will be a blog that says put a code. You'll put that 46625484 code, and automatically it will take you through this question. And now we need you to vote, right? And the voting now is you giving us feedback on, after all the presentations that have been done, you know, how achievable do you think the big ask is? Okay, I see we've got 33 respondents, so this is good. This is very good. We're getting feedback. Okay. So this is also anonymous, so we won't know who actually responded, so that's why it's good. Okay, so when we're done, we will now move to the next question. We've got 4 questions. As soon as 90% answers, we move to the next question. So we had 30 people. Wow, this is good. This is good. So there's probably 1 or 2 people, 31. Okay, can we move to the next question? All right, next question. Are you moving to the next question? So we have 34 responses out of 36, which is good. 37. 37 now. Wow. Okay. The next question. Sorry, we have a technical glitch. Okay. So that's the first. Okay. We will look at the responses at a later stage. For now, the next question, I'm sure you can see it on your devices. Which actors in the ecosystem do you believe needs the most urgent support right now? And then you rank the following from 1 being the most important to 5 being the least important. So if you can rank these, who needs the most urgent support? Is it early learning programs? Is it parents and families? Is it ELP partners? Is it government and policy leaders, or funding and resource partners? Who needs the most support? Yes. Okay. So if you put ELPs as number 1, that means you are saying ELPs needs the most support. Okay, so we have 4 responses. Okay, 10, it's moving. Thank you. 15. Are you still thinking? You're done. Okay, great. 18. 21. We need to get to at least 30. 90%. 28, 29. All right. So we actually have 39 respondents, which is good. Okay. We are moving to the next question. Okay, this is now the responses. We'll look at that, Monique, in a minute. Next question. It kicked you out. Okay, maybe let's view responses. Yeah, apparently you go to view responses and it will take you back. So click on view responses and it will take you back. Shame, sorry guys. Technology is not. Yes. Okay, so we're going to review the two responses. Monique, if you're able to go to the first question. Let's look at the first question, especially since it kicked a lot of people out. Let's look at the two questions. And then after the two questions, what we will do is then move to the group session. Okay. All right. So how achievable do you think the big ask of the blueprint is? So 7.4, which is close to, so obviously 10 being it's definite yes, and so most of the people are saying yes, it is achievable. And about 2.6 people are probably saying, hey, we're not sure or it's not achievable. So this is good. It's a good feedback because it helps the DBE team to try, and convince, everyone that definitely it is. But it is everyone's now question to actually figure out how do we make it work. So 7.4 in this group is saying, yes, it is achievable. Can we clap hands for that? So this is a good direction, forward thinking. We are now taking this forward. And in terms of which actors in the ecosystem we believe needs the most urgent support right now, so most of the people think that we need ELPs, which is early learning programs, need the most support, which is put at number 1. And then number 2, parents and families. Now this goes back to what the room has been feeling regarding parenting being included and prioritized as well. Number 3, ELP partners. Number 4, government and policy leaders. And lastly, funding and resource partners. I thought funding would be the first as well. But yeah, this is the feedback that we have, and I think it's quite good that we are able to, give this feedback in terms of, who needs the most help, because it will help us in terms of moving forward. And then the next one is now, this is, we're going to look at what excites you about the blueprint. You're done already? Just one answer. What excites you about it? One word answer. Okay? It's informative, free participation, collaboration, action-orientated, co-creation. So I think the answers are clear in terms of it gives direction. It's actionable, so meaning that, yes, we can, with the 23 action map, we are able to now know how to actually make it happen. And then also we have, it's inclusive. I see there's inclusivity there. Framework. So a few people still adding their answers, but I think the feedback is quite positive. It is moving forward. Okay. All right. Collaboration, it's actually the system. It's what most people are saying. Most people are in agreement with that. Okay, let's move to the next one, the last one. Okay, now this is very important. What makes you anxious? So it's more like, okay, we've had the good things. What do you think, makes you a bit anxious about the blueprint? If possible. Okay, this one might, yeah. Are you not able to respond there? Okay, I think we're not able to respond on that one directly. Have you? Okay, great. It's just not showing on the screen, but yeah, the responses are being noted on the other side. So we've got 9 are hidden, and then we've got 39 responded, it looks like. Okay. Colleagues, the next part of this session, we're going to now look at, I think we're going to move away from Mentimeter. We want to now hear your voices, right? I think there's something else that I'm missing. Another question. Are the 4 okay? Is that fine? We're moving to the groups now. Okay, great. So, as you heard earlier from Tsepo's presentation, we do have actors in the ecosystem or in the blueprint. So right now what we need is 3 groups. So depending on where you are coming from, as in the organization you are working for, we want 3 groups. So in this group you will see, actually there's 3 groups. So the first group I would say will come this side. And in this group we need a network of care closest to the child. So in this group, we'll want anyone who comes from ELPs or ELP partners. If you're coming from a preschool or a parent organization, family organization, this is the group that will come here. And then on the other side at the back, on my far left, there's also another group. This is where we're looking for government organizations. If you are coming from a government, whether it's provincial, local, or local government, provincial departments, or even any sister department, you will go then to the back on the other side. And then on my right, you will see on the other side there's another map and what Tsepo was sharing earlier. So this is now where the third group will go on the other side. So we'll have 3 groups of actors, right? And then these groups are now going to I think I lost my trail of thoughts. Are going to ask questions, are going to answer questions. Hold on for me. Okay, so now this goes back to what we were saying earlier. In terms of what is your role, where do you see, do you remember the 3 questions I asked when I started? So now this is where we want to know, as an organization, or even as your role, what you are doing as an organization, where do you see yourself fit? And you will look at the map in terms of what Tsepo presented, and then you'll be able then to add to the map in terms of what exactly do you think you can contribute. And what we also need there is, if you are an organization that's not in the ecosystem, then you need to also give us information. We've got sticker points. I'm not sure if you saw the stickers. So you can write information on those stickers in terms of the organization that you come from and the role that you play. Like Erica said earlier, that they are more on male caregiver support. So you can say Takalani Sesame and male caregiver, so that when we are looking for partners who can come through in the ecosystem, we will know which organizations to actually try and look at and partner with. I'm not sure if that makes sense. A bit? Yaneli, do you want to help me here? Okay, so we said the first group will come here. So this group will be the blue, because it's all in 3 colors. The purple. This is all ELP providers, right? And then also parents and families, provider organizations, and then ELP partners. These will be the ones who are here. And then at the back On my left, we will have government. So if you're coming from a local government department, sister departments, all the teams can go that side. And then on the right, we will then have, organizations, civil society organizations that are dealing with other areas of ECD, like that are training providers. And then we'll have like your ELP partner collectives. We will also have, community organizations, if there's any, will be on the right. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. Does that make sense? Yes. Yes, so the sticky notes is where now you're answering the question of what is your role as an organization, or even the stakeholders, whoever you are, what is your role in the blueprint? Okay? Are they going to report back? No. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So I think there's 3 things we want you to do when you get in your groups. The first one is actually vote. Vote on the action. So you'll see there's little dots, the little sticky dots. There's the action map. And what are the action you think, almost the 3 actions you think are most urgent and important? So the first activity is take little dots and place it next to the number of that action you think is most urgent and important. That is helping us understand and prioritize. Second action will then be on the post-it notes to say, this is where we are already working. This is important so that we start understanding who is in the ecosystem, who's doing what. So we want to hear that. So post and say, this is us, we're already working on these actions, so that we can start getting that information. After the commission, we'll collate that and we'll be able to pull that together. But that's helping us to understand who is where and what are they doing. And then I think the third one can be, if you still feel after all these conversations there's big gaps that we haven't thought of, put it on a post-it note. Say, these are the big gaps that we still see. We haven't thought of this. We haven't thought of these actors, or we haven't thought of these actions, so that we can collate that as well afterwards. I think we'll probably do about 20 minutes of doing that, have discussions in the groups, get to know each other. I think that's always part of the ecosystem, is understanding, connecting, and working. And then I think we can come back and just, I think in each group, perhaps if someone can just say, like, this really stood out for me, or this is really, I think, a big gap we saw, or this is something that really excited me. I think we can have a general reflective session, but we'll collate the input that was on the stickies.
So it's 10 past now. How much time do you give? 20 minutes. Okay, so it's almost 10 past. So by 30:30, if we can all come back to, give that feedback as Yaneli has indicated. Okay? Yes?
Yes, so the voting, each person in the group can do the voting using your dots. Each person can write on their post-it note what they're doing, where they are contributing. But then I think, given that we're in a group, to start that discussion a little bit as well, sharing. Oh, I've put my name up here. This is what we're doing. Is that helpful? Pop them, place them. Just write new idea, and then we get that as well. Thank you. I'd love that. Yes. Excellent. Is everyone clear? So we've got purple. Gloria, am I correct? Purple here.
So we've got purple, and then we've got government, which is green, and then the other one.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So ELP providers, families, ELP partners here. Great. Gloria, will you be here with them? Okay, I'll take the government group. We're the blue group. We'll be in the back in that corner. Anyone, DBE, any government department, provincial department, local government will be in that group. And then the final group is civil society, ELP partners, NGOs, RTOs, that corner.
Okay, Tsepo will be on the other side with the other group. I am here, yes. Okay, can we, if you are confused, please raise your hand. We'll come and clarify. Government, that's that side. Everyone from government, that side.
I mean, it might be a government like local government.
Yes. Where are you?
I'm wearing a technical badge today. No, I'm sorry that thing was thrown good.
I'm like, okay, let's move them to here then.
And then,
some more, the voting, what are they voting for?
I don't know where I'm belonging. I just see there's nobody here, so I'm here.
oh, you want to act?
I see there's nobody.
Actions are the most important.
No, this one is about the ELP providers. Like, for
So
example,
this is,
if you are from
where's the map? Where's
the university, wherein you are providing these early learning programs, it's just like that.
Yeah, I think so. That will help.
So maybe the problem.
Early learning, yeah.
Yeah,
This is,
might be the college, it might be the university,
yes.
wherever you provide this.
Yeah, I think for most of the providers have gone there. This is government. They've gone. This is government. Okay, let's vote.
What do they do with it? Maybe the confusion that I have is when we are voting, because we get 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Ours is this.
So, but we see this as one network. Because, because they sort of, as you saw here, they are a network of their closest to the child. You see what I mean? So, a center, a parent, they are the first closest to the child. So, this is the first thing.
Oh, in a way, we are going to prioritize them. This should be the first one.
Yeah.
Second,
Yes.
first. I'm just setting, it's just for an example. If it's one is this one, will be just like that.
Yes.
And then how many stickers are we supposed to put?
So, it depends on how, so you can choose any color, but it depends the more the stickers, the more it tells us this is what's been prioritized.
Because I would prefer green. Green, everybody could see.
And we put this side.
They can use green this one because it's green.
So green has to work here, okay? So all of us are voting for the same thing because they're saying we have to vote per person, okay? And then the
second one.
The second one
The
is
second one, I think we can come. No, we can come. Before we get the funds, we must. It should
I
start
thought the
with-
funds
No. Government comes in with the monies and everything.
At the end.
So we can't get money before all these other things.
So that's number 2. If this thing is fine. So which one is number 2? This one.
And then obviously this one will be the last one because this is where we get our funds. Oh, really? Okay. No, I thought maybe because it goes with
all 3 of us. So but then it's more like we're saying the same thing. Yeah.
Haven't you heard about the type in class?
No, there shouldn't be a type. We want to have
Okay. Oh, no, it's that. No, I get it.
Okay, the next one is now the
Will be done.
I mean, so now you need to write first, where do you see yourself as an organization?
Oh.
And then what role can you play? Between where do you see yourself? So you'll write what is the first your name of the organization, what is your name, what is your role, and then where do you see yourself?
So
then also the last one is because anything else that you think of like what else is there? Yeah. Autism insurance, if it's happening.
Yeah, because as and when I was listening to everything, I saw like I felt like we are doing the process. We are not doing the details. Yeah, so this is all about principles. And remember, principle is a principle.
It's just action. I feel like you've got this practice. This is sort of a holistic approach. And then now this one is supposed to be an implementation plan. How do you implement that?
And apart from that, even if I think this other thing here, curriculum, I think we must also come back to people so that because my friend that you put 3 providers of 5 people who have crafted curriculum. You should not just pick one because it's like you know something. So let's just go together.
Yeah, we are saying who do you work with? So because we never even started that. We want to know who is your most so we need to appoint one. And if they are saying I'm from the yeah, but if we are saying I want to get
and I know why.
So then it means where do you want to?
I think
you want to be part of the engagement, you want to be part of the support. Is it mandatory?
They must be in this way.
They are the ones. And then your role is training. Training? And then what else?
And then if we can also go for support, after training they should be support. Of course, unless otherwise we are.
So we're training and support.
Yeah, training and support.
Okay. Oh yeah, because you are doing training and support, and then
And then you know, I'm just otherwise we are seeing. Remember this thing. Now that we got here, it's so much important that people who are fit for the people. Because when you train them, they will be directly going to whatever you wanted to achieve.
so you are saying you involve in support. So number 16, no, number 15. Catalog, yeah.
And remember, the children work with the society because it's our responsibility to go to the society. And then we propose those people at least to be part of all the things.
So you say number 15.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So then there is
Yeah. Civil society.
what did you write when you
You're done. Segment of viewers.
I find it very difficult to locate myself in such a party.
Yeah.
So you are saying action 3 is you want to enhance
We are handing out money here. Can you please join us?
You can see I'm dealing with 2 and 20 and they both
Listen
speak
to my
disability. This
Listen
is
to
where
my
we operate.
recruitment. We are handing money.
no, but this is government, this is not government.
I'm just waiting.
I don't want government here.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
You see, during the round of questions and comments, just after we discussed, so that we close out, yeah, but I wanted to expand in terms of what we do and also what we think needs to
Maybe
happen.
when you are to say, but also speak in terms of SEO, our role in places like you're saying, but bringing in
don't even go and engage these people. That's the problem. Because someone sometimes you also get the feedback from the people. Okay, you will do it. And then what did you get? How did you share the information?
And that's what we want now. We want to know what else. So you say feedback.
Whatever age, yes. Whatever we get, I think you understand. But once you are being continued, you are preserving the community of the structure that you are undergoing. When you get
So what notice? When they call us and we can do it. Say one of the things was this reading from the city association. This our, we want to support the city of Korea, but then the action goes to the so maybe add to what you want to say. So that would be a platform.
It's okay.
So the other question was the teaching and talking. This is what we spoke about. So this is what we spoke. So most of us are saying we are Muslim.
Yeah. Providers. Yeah.
So before you respond, you say, me, I'm from the network of close ones. You are representing your provider, career one. And then you mention
Are you not training? Are you not training?
it's training. But I'm just saying, when you are responding, I can review to the feedback from this network. This network is so right now when you are talking, you're talking about this network. That's okay, even though we discuss whatever, fine. But we really focus and then present something of it. And then we talk 3 or 4.
Like we are the same with you. Sometimes it's not necessary for us to stand up and do it because this is what we do.
You know what my issue is? I know that I don't have enough comprehension. These things that you're talking about and ECDs, I'm
When
busy.
you're just saying, I was part of the country, then you are mentioning what is of part of the land mentioning for the So you're just telling us that you were part of this process, but then this is part of the discussion of what went out and what you do. We need to really start thinking about, in terms of 2 and 4. I mean, 2 and 20 are mostly what people have been trying to understand.
These ones are those practitioners.
Yeah.
So Baba Nale direct contact with us, including them, because there is direct contact.
Like for example, if you are we are the provider. And when I will be the provider to this, because it goes the cascades down like this.
So when I your parents, I don't so when you are the right thing, so I check you are the only training provider. So I know you are weight method than me.
Yeah, that's why I know. You can't just decide to be unless your foundation is strong. So we need this.
And you know what's interesting? When you said the mention method, everyone thought that was the
And they don't know.
so I think what we all preparing the information.
Yeah, I'm thinking that is the thing. I'm wondering why are people not here? What's happening?
No, but because they don't even talk about it. Right now, this is the
like we're done. So yeah, you can talk about that point. Colleagues, we've got 1 minute to please go back to your seats. We are done. Time is up. Oh. Okay, colleagues, apparently someone has lost a phone with a long linear. Did you get it? Ah, there it is. Okay, thank you. We found it. Please, let's go back to our seats. We need to do the last part. Colleagues, please, let's go back to our seat. Thank you so much, colleagues. We are almost at the end of the session. Thank you for coming back. Thank you so much. I think let's wrap up the session. I can see the most active group was the government. They are the last ones to come. They're quite excited. Okay, so as Yaneli said, what we will do now is if there's any key ideas or something that excited you in your group as you were talking. So this is not necessarily group feedback. So just something that excited you within your group, something that you think we need to be aware of as, you know, a commission and look forward to, especially with regards to giving feedback tomorrow. We just want you to please note it and use this platform to share that so that our scribe can add those comments. So I will start with the government group, the most excited one. Any thoughts from that group in terms of your discussions and the blueprint and the 23 actions from the government group that was over there? Any thoughts, any key ideas, something that excited you? Okay, Ma'am.
No, thank you so much. What excited me was us looking at those unpopular ones, the ones that did not have stickers, which was leaving a question to say it's either we are not too comfortable in understanding, or that's where we need to focus on in terms of bringing in new ideas. For example, we cited some where we felt we need to use a very user-friendly language that could be understood by everybody. There was a term of talent development, which of course is taken from one of the government policies, but in terms of communicating that and making it clear to everyone, we felt maybe we could use words such as practitioner development or workforce that is well capacitated, just simple language. So I think we Yeah. So this is just some of the areas where we felt maybe as an thank you.
Thank you so much. So the language needs to be looked into, needs to be simplified. I see a lot of people nodding. Ospuleng, you're also in agreement. Let's give you a mic.
A matter of not knowing which should be the first, because all of them, they seems to be needed. And I think Tsepo was so right to say, ECD, you learn until you don't know. It needs so many, and we heard even this morning from I don't know, the speaker was saying, it's everybody's business. So, yeah.
you echo what Puleng said. Okay, thank you. So Puleng was not in the government one, but she did add to what government was saying. So you are in agreement. Are you bringing it back to your group? Okay, and then any other inputs from that group, that side? That was another bigger group. This one was less resource. There wasn't a lot of ELP providers here in the group, even trainers. Any feedback, anything that stood out for you? It looks like a lot is covered. Okay, or we will find your inputs in there. I can see people are tired. And then there was also feedback. I don't know where's the gentleman from. There he is. Yeah, so from this group, there was feedback. I think the gentleman did say, please make sure I speak.
Yeah, I think she's putting me in hot water. Yes. Well, I am from Sanase, and every time when I open my mouth, I'll speak about disability. That's the area that we are focusing on. We do appreciate and understand that it is important that the ELP providers need to be supported. Also parents, and now there's a lady who spoke about children with autism earlier on, and the frustrations that the parents who are having those children are facing, as well as the challenges the practitioners are facing. But I came here for these 3 days to say only this one thing, that in the space of disability, we have got different disabilities, and they cannot be handled in a one-size-fits-all fashion. There is this particular group of children that have got hearing disabilities, the ones that we refer to as deaf. When you look at the policies and the direction of the Department of Education, you will realize that inclusive education, it's actually, or resonates with the conventions on the right of persons with disabilities, Article 24, that children should be actually trained in the immediate areas where the communities that they come from. But this particular group of children that I want to speak about, they have got a community on their own, and this community, unfortunately, is not found within that immediate community. And that poses a serious gap and challenge in terms of their language development. And therefore, we propose that for this particular children, the ECD centers should be located in the schools for the deaf. I want to put that across sharply, because it is in those areas where children will be able to find their peers who they can communicate with, through which incidental and accidental learning will be taking place, in order for them to be school ready by the time they reach 5. So I would like to implore to this commission to actually take that as one of the recommendations, in addition to what Mark has indicated in terms of the possible neglect of the 0 to 2 years. Because this 0 to 2 years, by the time the child is 2 years, ordinarily they've learned a lot of things. A lot of vocabulary has been learned. But with these ones, because they are living a silent world, they have learned nothing, absolutely nothing. Because there's nobody to communicate with. Even if you try and train the practitioner in terms of sign language, but there will not be that constant engagement, which actually create this huge gap. So this is a very serious gray area that we need to really close. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, can you give yourself a round of applause for being such a great audience today? I think, as indicated when we started, there will be a report that comes out of this. We have a scribe that's noted all the inputs. So we thank you for your voices. We thank you for your participation. All the inputs that you have given are very important and valuable. And the discussion does not stop here. I think anytime you can engage with the Department of Education, anytime you can reach out to any of the DBE colleagues, if you've got questions, more inputs as you go home and you think about additional things that you think could add to already the work that the blueprint needs to do, please feel free to reach out. We have come to the end of this particular session, and I think just thanking all of you for your participation, your inputs. The work has begun. The how now needs to unfold, and it's all because of all of you sitting here in the sector. And thank you to the Department of Education for leading. Yaneli, I saw Ms. Manona. Can we clap hands, for them? I know they have been leading all this work within the department. So we really appreciate your leadership and your guidance as you coordinate this sector. And we are looking forward to seeing a lot happen in terms of the 23 actions and everyone being part of the ecosystem. On that note, I would like to conclude the session and thank everybody. Please feel free to go home. I think we're done. Or there's also tea on the other side. I'm told there's tea. Which side? This side. Yeah, there's tea and snacks on the right. Please feel free to have. There's one comment. Just give us a minute.
Okay, actually, let me stand up. This is not a comment, but a way of saying thank you to you for chairing and leading this session gracefully, peacefully, effortlessly. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your. You got a blueprint. Thank you, everyone.